Sir was saying that this is so critical, that this is a long-term fight. Don't go out of here tonight and think that, man, you know, you're not going to be hearing back from us again in 6 months, because it might be 6 or 8 months. But we're saying we need you to come out tonight because the DEP wants to hear from you. And you pack a room like this and you express your concerns to these folks, I'll guarantee you they're going to listen. If 5 or 6 people come out and do a little rabble rousing, they're going to say, hey, the community doesn't mind. Remember that. Now, let's move on to, would you like to go first, or Mr. Savage? You drove quite a ways. You can come on up here. Mike Savage, community development consultant with over 40 years of experience of working with communities all over the United States. And we are glad to say that he is here in our backyard helping the fine folks at the Stop the Landfill group up in Rush Township. Please welcome Mike Savage.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Can you pull us out?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, again, I am Mike Savage. I live over in Rush, and those of you who know about Rush Township, I live actually right in the middle of Black Shannon State Park. So I couldn't be any further away from here and be in Rush Township unless I was actually in part of the forest on the other side of the mountain. But I got into this actually a little over 2 years ago. We fairly recently moved to this area, and one of my neighbors, sister, says, you've got to get the Savages and we've got to come to this meeting tonight. And it was a meeting of the Rush Township Supervisors where they had the opportunity to void the host agreement that they'd executed several months before with the developer. And that was because they have flopped back and forth between whether to use existing roads or to have an entirely new, allegedly privately financed interchange come off I-80 to serve the landfill. And because of this change to the host agreement, it opened the opportunity for the supervisors to basically ding the deal. Well, we had more people than in this room who showed up in opposition to the landfill deal. The supervisors, of which there were only 2 originally who voted on it, just basically listened. At least they sat there with their ears flapping, but then just voted to go ahead with the deal. They had the opportunity to queer the whole thing right then. Well, frankly, that got some of us unhappy. And so we then found out that something like the same thing had happened already in Snowshoe Township with the same developer. And they had actually gotten a bit ahead of the curve and had formed an organization that then morphed into what is now called People Protecting Communities. And I want to introduce 2 people who are here. First of all, Mary Ann Williams, who is from Rush, and then Michelle Barban, who is from Snowshoe. And I have talked to a couple of people in the audience, and Michelle has been kind enough because she is our webmaster. And one of the things I would simply add to the 2 representatives who spoke before, yes, you have to get organized. Yes, you have to get information out, but you also have to be sure that you are getting the information out in a way that people can relate to it. And that's why we have actually already linked to Sam's website, and we will be happy, all of us, probably about half a dozen, 6 or 8 people who are most heavily involved with People Protecting Communities, we'll be happy to work with the Boggs Township people as you move along, just our experience, sit on a small group or one-on-one, whatever you like. But that does bring me to the one point which was mentioned but not really focused on in the previous speakers. You have to do your homework. And this now gets to the very point that you were asking about, Sam, that you are dealing now with at least DEP and probably several different parts of DEP. You're going to be dealing, if you haven't already, with PennDOT, because there will be a requirement for a point of access agreement. No matter what the local road configuration is going to be. Chances are, over time, you'll be dealing with several other state or even federal agencies. And in our case, we have already gone through the process of the local municipal involvement meeting, which was somewhat unusual. Before that, I think we were the first group, a non-governmental, to actually be able to speak, and so we did get our 2 cents in. But since then, and the main thing that happened at that meeting was that there was a negotiation between regional DEP and the folks from the legislators' offices and the state and the Center County Planning Commission, how long the review process was going to last. Well, there was a back and forth on it, and it was decided to be 21 months. That was, what, about 6 months ago? It was several months ago in any case. And to this minute, that clock has not started running. And why hasn't it started running? It hasn't started running because when some of you will be unlucky enough, if you haven't already, if you're going to be working on this, to take a look at the DEP permit application form. And believe me, it is extremely complicated, but the developer, the burden is on the developer to answer the questions that are on that form. And then DEP will take a look at it, but at the same time, we, as PPC, have already reviewed it, given a very cogent analysis of 3 of the major points we felt were just totally inaccurate and inadequate in the application. And partly because of that, but partly because of DEP's own review, as of now, that clock has not started running because of the deficiencies in the application. DEP has suspended processing of the application. Now, this man has dealt with this for 17 years, and so I'm not sitting here going to stand here and tell you that this is going to be over soon. I still think it's going to take several years to be resolved one way or another. But at least we have gotten in the game. We have found out the right people to talk to, the right buttons to push, etc. Same thing, but in a different way, because PennDOT is different than DEP to deal with. I would suggest, however, if you have not already, that folk who are, your steering committee or whatever you call the group that is heading the opposition to the landfill and bogs, you should go over and sit down with the people at Williamsport in DEP, drive down the road here, and sit down with the people in PennDOT. Basically, while they can't make any commitments to you, they can be sure that you do understand how the game is played, and you can then be sure that you are looking at the right things as you go along. Let me just stop there and ask either Michelle or Marianne have anything to add to that basic issue.
You want to take the mic, please?
Please come up.
And folks, I want to thank Michelle. She actually contacted me a couple days ago, Marianne, and had offered to do a slideshow about the effects this would have in Moshannon, and we decided to skip through the video and slides tonight, so thank you for the offer. Hopefully we can get those put up on the web for people.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that each particular site is going to have its own issues. One of the things that's tying up the Rush and Snowshoe Township sites now is that they want to encroach on wetlands, and they haven't answered the question sufficiently for the wetland permit. If they don't get the wetland encroachment permit, they're done. See what other permits they might need to develop that landfill at that site, whether it's air quality, encroachment on wetlands. It can be stopped at several levels because all of these permits have to go into one big coordination series at the end of this all. And if they don't get one, they don't get them all.
There was an interesting point the gentleman from DEP brought up in regards to birds. And I can't remember maybe you know the technical term, I can't remember what it was. But there was a landfill expansion permit that was denied in Pennsylvania recently because of the close proximity of the landfill to an airport, to a local municipal airport. The vast amount of turkey vultures and seagulls that these things attract posed a flight traffic problem, and they denied the expansion permit. So it is, you're absolutely right. There's so many different angles that you can take to stop this. Marianne?
Du Bois Jefferson County?
I don't know. He didn't say. Yeah. I have the data, but I don't.
This is where, again, I just urge you to do your homework. Once the application is submitted by the applicant, which would be the developer, although they cannot submit it if there isn't a host agreement, which I understand, unfortunately, you have in bogs, as we did do in Rush Township, although I'm sure as I'm standing here, if you ever have time to really review that host agreement, that you can drive a truck through it, and one of these days in our spare time, we plan to do that. But in any case, I just want to point out another thing. When you actually look at the Form D of the permit, it then has about, I'd say, 15 pages of questions, all of which have to be answered yes or no. Will this affect the habitat? Will this negatively affect wetlands, et cetera, et cetera? So it goes into probably the purview of almost every cabinet-level agency in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and most federal agencies too. And they all have to sign off on this. Now, the developer made one big mistake, among, I think, others, and that is that in the place in the box where they're supposed to check, they did check, but they checked the box incorrectly. Is the landfill, in this case landfill/interchange, consistent with local comprehensive plans? Well, the director of the Center County Planning Commission and the commission itself and the Board of Commissioners have all with one voice said it is not consistent. Therefore, in the first place, they checked it incorrectly. And second, the director of planning has written a letter. He was there at the local municipal involvement meeting, and I think he actually had the letter written and handed to them at the time. Now, this is important for two reasons. One, DEP's own process is such that if, in fact, this is true, if the landfill is not consistent with the local comprehensive plans, then the chances of it being approved are very, very slim. There's a whole process I won't bore you with. It has to go to Harrisburg, to the policy office, and you can kind of figure out what happens from there, but at least it will slow down the process a lot. Second, with regard to PennDOT, and excuse me for using the alphabet soup here, I'm an old Fed, the FHWA, for Federal Highway Administration. Specific requirement in the other nationwide blurbs from FHWA. You cannot add an interchange to the federal highway system unless it is consistent with both local comprehensive plans and the local long-range transportation plan. That's what I was chatting with one of your members earlier tonight. I don't know what in Clearfield County your metropolitan planning organization is, but whatever it is, hopefully you've got a process, and you would know the right people on that body to make a determination, assuming that you can, that the dump is not consistent with a long-range transportation plan. Because that way, and I know there are people here in the audience who are quite familiar with PennDOT, so I won't put them on the spot, I don't see how PennDOT could even let an application like that go to Harrisburg. But it is just as clear as the nose on anybody's face that if it goes to FHWA, they will have no alternative but to kick it back. Now, Michelle giving you the view on the wetlands because she knows a lot about it. We wrote I don't even know how long a paper was, but it was long enough to cover the subject, on 3 of the points we thought were most critical. DEP is not following its own rules at this time because they have only allowed the comment period of 60 days to go through, was it December 20th or 21st? 20th. And yet, the application is still in limbo. Now, we are going to meet with DEP quite soon, and we're also scaring up a possible lawyer to go with us so we can have somebody to back us up. And we're just going to challenge DEP on why they aren't following their own ground rules. Now, we're not going to do that in a confrontational way, but the DEP's whole process is to try to be sure that the facts are put on the table, that they're reviewed correctly by DEP and the other agencies, and to give other interested parties a chance to be heard. Again, let me just stop there. Anything else that needs to be added to that? Now, there's a lot more I can tell you about the infighting. Again, I told you how I got into this. I had a broken leg at the time. I was standing on one leg, and one of the 2 supervisors was just being so blatantly not paying attention to what the folks were saying that I told him, which was true, that I've worked in this business actually closer to 50 years than 40. I've worked with communities all over the country, big and small, and I had never seen 2 people act in as arrogant a fashion as those 2 had. And that is the thing that got the people in Rush so up in arms about this, that not just the landfill, although a bunch of us are, believe me, very much against the landfill, but just the way they behave. So although we had good advice from the 2 supervisors, 2 commissioners, we can't do much about our current supervisors, but we are continuing to do everything we can to get ahead of the curve and to try to defeat the landfill on the ground rules that have been laid before us. So at this point, there are other little war stories I could tell you, but I think, again, I just emphasize that all of us on the steering committee for PPC be happy to sit down with individuals or with a small group, share anything we've got, give you thoughts, etc. And also, please do go to our website. Michelle, what's the website?
www.stoplandfill.com.
Everybody hear that? www.stoplandfill.com. And also, we do have quite a bit of material out in the back there, and hopefully that will be helpful to you. And again, thanks so much for coming by. I totally agree, Sam, with both you and the two representatives, that while we're here because we want to support bogs, at the same time, we totally agree that it makes a lot of sense to be approaching this on a regional basis. So again, we appreciate the opportunity to come tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to remind everybody, everybody's so freaked out about the internet. Oh, I can't download stuff.